All right, a quick introduction to the G-Class. There's not a lot that you'll need to know on the outside. However, with the new redesign, we do have keyless go. So by putting your hand on the inside of the door handles, they will pop the locks. And if you press on the little indent, it will lock. The G-Class is a military, not a military-inspired vehicle. It is a military vehicle, so you will still find touches of that heritage. Like the doors, you do need to give them a good push to... You can't be shy. They're super overbuilt. The seat, they flip forward just like a military vehicle would. You just pull on this lever to drop the top of the seats. In the back, you've got a 12-volt charger up top. Obviously, tonneau cover, which is kind of redundant because the tint on these vehicles is so dark. The main difference with the new G-Class, as I had mentioned before, is in the tech stuff. So that's where I'm going to spend the bulk of my time. So when we get into the vehicle, push button start, of course. If you're not a fan of auto start stop, they put the button to disable that right next to the starter. So you can just kind of click 1, 2 if you don't want it to do auto start stop. I'm just going to work my way across the seat, the dash. So on the door, the seat adjustment is this lever here that I was just moving. So I'm 6'5", so I was going all the way back. If you want to go forward, you push on the back of it and go up or down on the front, up or down on the back. This little extra piece is a thigh extension. So if I press that, see how the seat kind of grows? So for taller drivers, headrest has up and down adjustability. It does have manual adjustment for forward and aft. So there's a little button here that you can press on the side to go forward and backward. You get lock and unlock, heated seat, which cycles 3. The steering wheel adjustment is a little lever here that you move up and down, and that's where your steering wheel heating is activated. So you turn this like a key, and it lights up red, and it'll come up on the dash and say on or off when you activate it. The controls for the mirrors and windows are pretty self-explanatory. The only button that isn't in every manufacturer is this middle one for the mirror adjustment. If you click that, the mirrors will fold in. So if you're going down a really narrow street, or if you're concerned parked on the side of the road that somebody's going to bonk your mirror off, you press that button. The buttons down here people don't tend to play with because the parking brake's automatic, so it'll engage when you're in park and disengage when you put it in drive. Headlights likewise automatic. That's your fog lights, and this roller is for how bright your gauges will be at night. The shifter in a Mercedes is here on the right-hand side of the steering column, so it's pretty straightforward. Down is drive, up is reverse, and you'll get a little indicator down here of what you're in. The little silver button at the end is park, and if you want to get into neutral, you just kind of do a little half press, and it'll take you into neutral, and it'll give you a warning that you're in neutral. The little C that you see down there is comfort. So you can change your drive modes with this dynamic toggle, but if I cycle through, you'll see there's sport mode, eco mode, trail mode. So there's all these different drive modes, but by default, it'll start in comfort every time you start the vehicle. Because the shifter takes up the right-hand side of the steering wheel, the left is your lights and your wipers. So the lights is pretty self-explanatory, signaling, brights. And then the way the wipers work, so right now it's in the off position. I've got 2 levels of rain sensing, which are these little dots next to each other. So low level, high level rain sensing, and then 2 levels of on, basically low level and high level. If I want to do a single swipe, like say it's just misting and it hasn't activated the rain sensor, if I lightly press that button at the end, I'll get 1 swipe of the wipers. If I firmly press that, it'll actually spray fluid. And then this little inset control, so right now the wipers are off for the back. If I click that up, I'll get this little indicator that my rear wipers are on. And if I want to spray fluid on the back, I push it past that position, or when they're off, push it downward and it'll spray fluid to the back. The controls on the steering column, so you'll see the top of the steering wheel has the same 3 buttons on both sides. That's because this big piece of glass actually has 2 separate screens that are operating at the same time. So left hand, left screen, and if I'm driving, my right hand can control my right screen. So if I want to change what's on display here, this current gauge cluster is called the classic gauge. And if I swipe up and down across this OK, so just like I would on a smartphone, I'm not clicking anything, I'm just sort of sliding my finger across that. You can see all those little gray dots on the right-hand side. Those are options of what you can have displayed in the middle. Some of the gauge packages don't have the option to change, but I'll show you how to access the other gauges. So if I click the house, you'll see it kind of like zooms out, and then I have all these other gauge packages. So like, say I'm going for a sporty drive, I can see sport gauges. Or if I'm feeling kind of chill and I want the understated gauges, I can go to those. Or say I was taking it off-road, there's an off-road gauge that'll give me all my telemetry data. And you have to kind of play around with these. Some of these have additional customization. Like for example, if I'm in the understated, if I click OK, it'll give me a different color sunset that I can look at while I'm driving, and it mirrors the color in the center screen as well. I'll put it back to the classic though, because that's kind of the default Mercedes. Now this I can use to control the center screen. There's actually 4 ways you can control that center screen. So I can go, swiping left or right with my thumb. If I want to go into something, I just click OK and it takes me in. Click the house to go back home. I've got a trackpad that I can use just like a laptop would have. So because this has a bit more real estate, if I go into something like my navigation, for example, I can do pinch to zoom, just like you would on a phone. Now the screen is full touch, so that's the 3rd way you can interact with it. So you can just swipe your way. And that's what most people, if they've got the reach, they're just gonna reach out and kind of click and go from there. And then the 4th way is there's a digital assistant built in. So there's a little microphone up here that'll listen for instructions. So I could say, hey Mercedes.
How can I help?
Change the ambient light color to red.
Okay, I'm changing the color.
So most things that are electronically controlled, you can call up that assistant just by saying, hey Mercedes, and it'll recognize if a passenger or a driver is requesting things to be done. You can also bring that up by clicking on this little speech icon. So if I click that, you'll see the top of the dash kind of goes to this like sparkly, that means the car's listening for instruction. If you ever bring that up by accident, clicking the hang up will kind of hang up on Mercedes. It'll hang up on phone calls if you're on a call, but all other times it would hang up on Mercedes. This speech button can also be used to call up Siri or Alexa if your phone is paired. You just hold it down. So if I hold it down, it's going to prompt me to pair a phone. But if a phone is paired, then it'll go to your assistant on your phone. The star, there's a favorite section, which you can access by clicking this star, but they put a button on the steering wheel because the idea is you set up your favorites and then you've got a button on your steering wheel that gets you the stuff you use a lot. So they put a few things in here, but like say you never use the mobile browser, you just hold your finger on it, delete that, then you go over to the right and you go add, and you can add from any of these categories. So if you set that up to be like 3 things or 5 things you use a lot, it becomes a really handy button to have on your steering wheel. The other buttons here, so we've got a volume slider for the radio, and that works similar to the other side where you just slide your finger, and if you want to mute, you click at the bottom, and then the phone buttons. There's also a volume roller here for the passenger to control, and they click to mute as well. Now running through the center screen, so the house will work just like the button on the steering wheel, take us back home. We have a button for navigation. So if we click on that, it's going to bring up our map. We can enter a destination. We still have access to our phone, like what we're listening to. You can change your views for the map, like 2D, always north facing. The subset buttons, the left-hand one would be to enter a destination. Right-hand one would be to take me home, if you have a home address saved. The phone, so the first time you go in, you got to connect to your device, but then after that, it would bring up your call lists and dial pad and so on. Radio and media are what you listen to while you're driving. So we just had the radio going. We've got 400 channels, I think, of Sirius XM. If you want to favorite a channel, you just click on the little star and you can see it throws it down into the favorite section. And if you want to unfavorite it, you just click that and it pops it out. If we go back to the home screen, so media would be playing music from your phone. So for people that like podcasts or audiobooks, you'd click that and it would play from your phone that's paired. The apps, so we've got a mobile browser, and once we set up Me Connect, this will also add a few other things like a weather app and things that it would use your phone to access. We've got comfort, so this is where you can go in and you can change the ambient light settings. So we've got 64 colors to choose from, so I asked for red, but 64 to choose. Or if we go multicolor, we get these combo colors where it'll be like 2 tones that kind of complement each other, And as long as multicolor animation is turned on, which it probably is, then they'll cycle. So it'll be pink in one spot for a while, then blue, and they'll switch back and forth. We also have seat kinetics. So this is like a massage light where we click on here and we can either have the backrest or the seat surface or both run for a specified period of time, where if I'm doing a long drive, I click this on and the seat will move a little bit to kind of keep me fresh, basically. Keep me from falling asleep, keep me from sitting in the same position for too long. So we've got that. We have an off-road screen. So similar to the data that I showed you here, you can have it in this center screen. This is where we have our new clear bonnet. So if I click that and I move the vehicle forward, it'll actually show me what's underneath of the vehicle. So literally what's between my axles right now I can see on the screen. Go back out of that. Info is all the other non-off-road related data. So fuel consumption, I can see some vehicle data. So I'm standing on the brakes right now at 32%. We're at a 6-degree forward angle. Engine is going to show me like horsepower and torque. So I can make sure I'm in park, give it a little blip and you'll see it. You get this nice bar graph if you're on a sporty drive. And then the last tab beyond the Apple CarPlay, Android Auto is settings. So going into the settings, this is where you kind of make the car your own. So you can kind of go through each of these menus at the top, and each of them are going to have a subheading, and some of them even have like subheadings. By default, everything's going to be turned on, and turn on lane keep assist, and usually set to medium. So for example, like active brake assist is set to medium. So you can adjust the sensitivity of a lot of these systems, but by default, most people want everything on and everything set to medium. You've got, some light settings. So how long do your lights stay on when you get out of the car, things like that. This one has the multi-beam LEDs, so we've got it set up that it's turned on. System is where you'd go and change things like language. You can choose different displays. The voice assistant, that Hey M, it also has direct commands. So if you click, we want that on, click in here, all of these things, the car will do just by saying the words. You don't have to say, Hey M, and then wait for her response. You can just say next track, for example, to go to the next track for your music streaming. We've got an info tab, which is going to show you your version of the program, and also the owner's manual. So you've got a physical copy in your glove box and a digital copy here in the car. So that's the home screen in a nutshell. We have profiles, so you're going to want to create a profile for each user of the car, because it'll save this data. The memory seat on here will remember the seat and the steering wheel position and the mirrors. And then this would remember, okay, so-and-so likes sport gauges and has these favorites in his radio and so on. And then, so when you call up your profile, it's going to remember all the digital data. You do have paddle shifters. I just noticed I hadn't mentioned that, but I think it's a 9-speed dual clutch transmission. So if you do want to shift for yourself. We've got controls for the off-road, so low range. You've got locking differentials for the center and front and rear. Unless you're really in a position where the vehicle's not moving forward, I would say don't use these. They're really designed for true like off-road, deep in the muck. So the vehicle's 4MATIC system will get you out of almost anything that most people would use. But you do have, this vehicle is capable. Like there's, I think 5,000 or so are sold to military operations per year. So this all comes in handy when you need it. Your heating and air conditioning controls still have physical buttons. If you prefer digital, you click menu and you're going to have heating, air conditioning controls in here. And you can also, when you're in the menu, control the second row seats because they have their own control. And you do have the ability to turn on ionization. There's a HEPA filter. So if there is poor air quality, let's say a forest fire or something, you can click that on and it'll filter the air coming in from outside the vehicle. The only other thing down here that I like to point out, because people, if it's not told to them, they're not going to know it exists, this AC/rest. So when I turn the vehicle off, if I click rest, it'll use residual engine heat to keep the cabin warm for about half an hour. So if you're waiting for somebody in the winter and you don't want to be one of those people that sits there and idles, turn off your car, you click that, you're still going to be warm for about half an hour. Turn this back on. The other buttons down here, so the home and the back button, these little arrows are a track change. So if you're listening to music, you swipe your finger across that and it'll go to the next track or the next station while you're driving. Heard me say next station. You've got a wireless charging pad, a couple of USB-Cs, heated and cooled cup holders. So this little foil in here is aluminum that it gets very hot or very cold depending on what you've got it turned to, so just be careful. You have quick jumps for the main menu items, so map, radio, telephone, settings, favorites, and then this is your parking camera. So when you put it in reverse, you're going to get a top-down view with all these other camera options and a rear view. But if while I'm driving I want to bring up the cameras, if I click this, it'll also give me the option of seeing, okay, I want to see a close-up of my left or the right side of the vehicle, or the front of the vehicle, or the back of the vehicle. Or if you're on the 3D view, you can actually like spin it around and zoom in and, you know, really get a good view of where you are. You also can drop a pin, so this little thing will save a parking spot. So it'll bring up the cameras before you get to the parking spot if it knows that, okay, they always park here. And you also have this little P, which is self-park. So when I'm in drive, I'm gonna see this little P as long as I'm going less than 35 kilometers an hour. That means self-park is available. But if I'm in this view, then while I'm driving forwards, put it in drive here, I'm gonna see these little sonar waves coming off of the car. And if I drive past a parking spot that the vehicle sees and recognizes as parkable, then it'll actually come up on the screen and prompt me, okay, do you want me to park for you? Let me see if we don't have too many spaces here available, but okay, so that's what'll happen. You'll get that sound. So if I want that spot, it says press that P to start the parking procedure. So I just press the button, it puts my signal light on for me, and the steering wheel will literally kind of do the park procedure for me. So I'm gonna break out of that, and yeah, that's the controls kind of in a nutshell. The only other ones that I'd like to touch on, I'm just going to get it out of the way here, is up top. Under your mirror, you've got 3 buttons for integrated garage door opener. So you just hold one of those, you'll see this little orange flasher, hold the garage door button, and that'll start flashing green. It'll learn your code. So you can do 3 different garage doors. You've got sunroof control, so just pretty straightforward, forward and backward to open. And then you have your lights. So reading lights for left and right, for all, for rear. SOS will call 911, so that's under a safety switch, you can't hit it by accident. And me will call roadside. So if you click that button, during the whole time you've got warranty, somebody will come through the speaker and say, basically, how can I help you? What's going on? So if you get a flat tire, you run out of fuel, anything like that, you just press that button to request assistance. And that, my friends, I think is the G-Wagon with the new MBUX system.